Welcome to Session 2 of 4-H Camp Counselor Training 2017, Belonging, an Essential Element of 4-H. This is an online training module for counselors in the Calhoun, Jackson, and Liberty County Camp Cluster. What is belonging? I want you to take a minute and think about what your definition of belonging is. Pause the show if you need to, or if you already know what belonging is, then we will go ahead and move on. Research shows that it's important for youth to have opportunities for long-term, consistent relationship with adults other than their parents. So while it's important for them to have those good, caring, consistent relationships with their parents, it's also important for them to see that other adults care about them as well. So as the title of this presentation suggests, belonging is one of the essential elements of 4-H. There are 4 essential elements in 4-H, and you see those here: belonging, independence, mastery, and generosity. And camp is a place where all 4 essential elements can be used and met and taught. Of course, children are independent when they're at camp. They are away from their families and from their parents especially. There will be opportunities for them to master new skills at camp. There will be many of them will be doing things they've never done before. And also generosity, as we support each other and help each other and share with each other while we're at camp. It's a great time for them to learn generosity. But belonging is the thing that you probably will have the most control over and will be able to contribute to most while we're at camp. Belonging is, again, a positive relationship with a caring adult. It occurs in an inclusive environment and one that is safe. And you learned about safe and inclusive environments from the first session of this training. Youth who feel like they belong exhibit these positive characteristics. When their needs are met through belonging in positive ways, these kinds of kids are loving, attached, friendly, social and cooperative, and trusting. On the flip side, youth who do not experience belonging and their needs are not met, they tend to exhibit more negative characteristics. And it doesn't mean that they will exhibit all positive or all negative, but you may see more of one than the other, I guess we should say. So these kids may be lonely or feel lonely. They'll be unattached. They reject new ideas, new people especially. They may seem aloof or isolated, and they certainly can be distrustful and guarded. So these are characteristics of youth whose need for belonging goes unmet. Again, it's just a different visual reminder, a different way to look at it for those people who maybe didn't like the steps, but the bubbles would make them feel better. So if you have no sense of belonging, then you tend to feel like this. And we would not want any child to go home from camp feeling isolated or lonely, or like they didn't make any friends, or like they were rejected, or feeling like they needed to reject camp or the whole camp experience. We want them certainly. There are some critical elements of a safe and inclusive camp. We're going to focus primarily, though, on emotional safety, because with belonging, you really need to make sure that children feel emotionally safe so that they will belong. And part of emotional safety is respect for others, of course. Also inclusiveness and accepting differences, addressing homesickness or loneliness, and preventing and dealing with ridicule, hazing, exclusion, or cliques. So you see a couple of questions posed here. Why would we help build positive relationships? And why would we provide an inclusive environment? I want you to think about those questions as they relate to camp. We're only there for 5 days. Who really cares if they have positive relationships or an inclusive environment? Can't kids just have fun on their own without us doing these things? Think about that. The answer is Research tells us that youth are directly impacted by relationships with caring adults. And in your cabin, you are going to be perceived as the adult. You're going to serve in that adult role to a certain extent. So anytime you see adult, think counselor. Youth are directly impacted at camp by relationships with caring counselors. And of course, you know that all youth want and need to feel like they belong, whether they're at home, school, or in other groups, and especially at camp. When young people feel that adults, in this case counselors, in their lives at camp care about them, they feel more connected to their community, and relationships between generations are stronger and more meaningful. When youth feel they fit in, they are more apt to contribute to the group and to engage in positive peer relationships. So again, let's take this back to camp. If they feel like you care about them, they're more connected to the community. So the community is camp. They feel more connected to camp. Relationships between generations are stronger and more meaningful. The generations at camp would be like the different roles that we serve in. Agents, program director, resident director, staff, counselors, kids. If they are connected to you and you are providing a positive relationship and are serving as a positive role model, then they feel more connected to the rest of us. And I know that may seem silly to you, but it's true, and we see it time and time again. And I've been camping for 10 years now, and I know that's not nearly as long as many people across the state, but it has been long enough that I have seen that same thing over and over and over. Again, when you feel they fit in, they're more apt to contribute to the group, so they're more apt to participate at camp. They're more apt to engage in positive peer relationships and make new friends at camp, which is really what camp is all about. Truly, that's the thing that I am most proud of as far as the camping program is concerned. I think that the friends that children make and the experiences they get to have, the pride that they have in themselves when they try something new for the very first time, and then they're successful at it to any degree, those are the two things that I feel like they take back home and that really last with them for a long time. And you, as a counselor, will be instrumental in their success at both of those things. So why provide a safe environment? This is, again, one of those obvious questions and answers. In safe environments, youth express their thoughts and ideas without fear of being laughed at and without fear of harm or danger. Youth and adults feel emotionally safe when there are no put-downs or disrespectful behavior. You've seen this before. Why are we saying it again? Because this is one of the most important jobs you have as a counselor, making sure that everyone is being treated respectfully. So what do you know about 4-H campers? Stop and think about it. How old are they? What do they look like? How much money do they have? What kind of clothes do they wear? How excited are they to be here? What kind of family did they come from? What kind of foods do they eat? What kind of activities do they enjoy? Do you know the answers to any or all of these questions? Are any or all of those answers even important? Stop and think about it. What do we base our feelings or impressions on about a person? And you see the words here. Turn down the stereotyping. Ha ha ha. Turn down the stereotyping. Leave your preconceived notions at home. There's no place for them at camp. You know what stereotypes are. You know what stereotyping is. Stereotypes are generalizations, often exaggerated generalizations, like all people from the South are hicks, all people from the South are rednecks, all people from the South are stupid. Those are stereotypes. They are exaggerated generalizations or assumptions that people make about the characteristics of all members of a group based on an image, which is often wrong, about what the people in that group are like. Stereotypes are based on first assumptions or impressions, oftentimes. It's not fair to not give people a second chance. Images from mass media or reputations passed on by parents, peers, and other members of society affect our stereotypes. It's what we do as humans, often with little realization that we were even doing it. Stereotypes can be positive or they can be negative. The unfortunate thing is that stereotypes are roadblocks to belonging. They create prejudice and discrimination. Again, roadblocks to belonging. Prejudice is an opinion, prejudgment, or attitude about a group or its individual members. A prejudice can be positive, but in our usage it refers to a negative attitude. Discrimination is a behavior that treats people unequally because of their group memberships. Negative prejudice and discrimination are not appropriate at camp, and we try not to tolerate those things. We try to make sure that everyone is being positive and having a good time and treating everyone equally. And that's really one of the great things about camp, is that the unfortunate thing is we have to talk about this so that you're aware of it. But truthfully, when we get to camp, we so often see very, very little of this, if any. Camp is really a wonderful, magical place to me. It's almost like its own world when we get there. And everyone really usually does get along and enjoy each other, and you get to know everyone there and learn everyone's names and something about everyone. So I don't want any of you who may be first-year counselors to be anxious about this or to anticipate camp being a terrible experience, because we are focusing on these things. I will say it again and again throughout your training modules. We are just trying to prepare you for camp. We're trying to prepare you for the 1 in a million kid who gives you some trouble, or the 1 in a million kid who doesn't feel like they don't belong. Because at camp, those kids do seem to be 1 in a million. So don't be too upset. So I'm not 100% sure. I'm thinking that you're not going to be able to click on this link from the video. However, try to go look up this video if you'd like to. It's a song, Don't Laugh at Me, and it illustrates how people feel when they get picked on. So if you feel like you need a little more insight into how it might make people feel if they're not being treated as if they were in an inclusive environment, then this little video that Miss Angel from Jackson County found for us will certainly help you to understand that better. And she really likes this quote. So that's why she was the perfect person to help us create this presentation, this session of counselor training. Once people get to know a person from the other side, they often will determine that the other is not nearly as bad as they originally assumed. One way that we try to create inclusive environments is through a DOT activity, and I'll explain the DOT activity to you so that you understand how it works. If you get to camp and the other counselors are talking about it, you won't feel excluded because you will know what they did and you will understand it, but also so that you can learn the moral to the story, so to speak. During this activity, each counselor closes their eyes and a color dot is placed on says on their forehead. I think we typically either hand them a card or make a dot on their hand. Most of the colors are represented multiple times, but there will be 2 or more for which only 1 dot is distributed. So think about this. Everybody closes their eyes, and we go around and use a colored marker and put a dot or an X on their forehead, or we pass out cards that have different colors on them so that each person gets colors. And most of the colors, there are lots of people who get that color, but in a couple, there is only 1 person. When we're finished distributing the dots, the counselors are told to open their eyes and that their task is to find the rest of the group without talking. So they're going to find everyone who matches their color. After the groups have formed and several youth have realized they are not part of a group, we ask them how they feel. And what we do is, instead of, as soon as you find your group, we stop the activity. Once they find their groups, we actually let them stand around and talk. Because when they find their groups, they will start to talk, whether they mean to or not. And the people who are just standing there by themselves are thinking, where are the rest of my people? What do I do? How do I act? Who do I talk to? And we ask them how they feel. How do they feel when they found their group? Most of them were relieved that they were successful with the activity, relieved that they found other people who were like them. And then we asked the people who were not part of a group, or maybe who were part of very small groups, how did they feel? We also asked those who have a group to try in any way to help those without a group, and they always say, come be a part of our group. And most of the time, We don't even have to get to this part of the activity. They will say, hey, you don't have a group? Come over here and be part of ours. And that's really what this is about. It is about seeing others who maybe look like they don't feel included or they don't belong to a part of a group and trying to include them in your activities. Not just to change them to your way of thinking or to make them do things the way you're doing them, but to become their friend. So if they have ideas and things that they can contribute, you do things their way as well and really listen to them and include them in your group. And it can't, you may or may not see this, but if you do, I hope that you will reach out to these people and include them in your groups and ask them, after you finish what you're working on, during free time, if you see them again, ask them, say, hey, why aren't you playing? If they just don't have friends or don't like the activity, ask them if there's something they do like to play. And if you find a common interest, then go and play with them or form a group that will be a good friend group for them. Another activity that we do at camp to illustrate inclusiveness is Animal Farm. And we have the counselors divided into groups of 6. If we don't have enough, or if the numbers don't work out quite right, then we just adjust. So each person gets a card with the name of a farm animal on it. And we have them make the sound of the animal from their card to find their group. So when they get into a group, each card has a different name. That's why we do it in groups of 6, so that each person gets a different card, and then they have to find people from the other group who have their cards. So it's kind of funny to see everyone walking around with their making their animal sounds and whatnot. But it's a fun activity and another way for them to try to learn how to listen for different sounds that maybe they're not used to, and look for different behaviors to identify people who are in their groups and also people who maybe are not. And then we again allow them to integrate with each other and talk about our differences. Another activity that we do to help make our counselors aware of belonging and how to create inclusive environments in which people feel like they belong is the Master Architect activity. And again, they divide into groups of 6, or 5 or 7 or 8 or 10 or whatever. And each team is given their necessary materials. They're instructed to construct the tallest tower possible using the materials provided. They're given 7 minutes to plan the tower and 10 minutes for actual construction. And while they're playing, they can't mess up the cards. They're just given a deck of cards, I'm pretty sure is what we used last year, but they can talk. While they're building the tower, they may not speak to each other. So the team that builds the tallest structure wins the game. But here's the catch. 2 people from each group will be given a disability during the group or during the activity. One may be blind, one may have only one leg, one may only have one arm or one hand, no fingers on the right hand, no fingers on the left hand. But the goal of the exercise is to have the team build the tallest freestanding tower with either 3x5 cards or a deck of playing cards. And the objective is to have them recognize people's differences and don't assume that they can't do something because of it, because they will find that although there are people in the group who have physical disabilities, it doesn't mean that they cannot contribute, because they can. And they find that everyone contributes in some way and is able to help the group. So, hopefully by the end of this presentation, all of our counselors from Calhoun, Jackson, and Liberty counties will know how to create a belonging environment for their campers, one that is safe and inclusive. Because as the picture here shows, what makes you different makes you special. And we truly believe that all of our campers and all of our counselors are special. And we want Camp Week to be a great week and one in which we're having a good time and having fun. And with that, this concludes Session 2 of our 4-H Camp Counselor Training 2017. Again, you need to finish all of the training modules and make sure that you take the evaluation at the end of the training and make sure that gets back to your 4-H agent. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please contact your local extension office. So that's the county that you're going to camp with. And I also encourage you to finish all of the trainings before you contact them, or all the modules in the training before you contact them, in case we answer your questions in a later in a later session. I apologize. So we look forward to seeing everyone at camp, and we hope you enjoy the training.